Episode 8 of Star Wars The Bad Batch sees Clone Force 99 finally reunite with their long-lost inhibitor-chipped brother, Crosshair. And he's unfortunately still obsessed with executing Order 66. Just like old times, isn't it? Just like every week, this episode featured a bunch of Easter eggs, details, and references to other Star Wars media, and that's what we're looking at today. They're still on Bracca as well, so a lot of Jedi Fallen Order stuff happening here. Fun times. Here are 24 details that you might have missed. Let's see if the Bad Batch can wake Crosshair up from the nightmare, or just watch Omega kill a bunch of clones with her bow. Seriously, she doesn't hold back with this thing. They're loving it. Look at her go. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. So super obvious, but I have to mention the title. The episode is titled Reunion because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Clone Force 99 reuniting with Crosshair, as if they're having a clone high school reunion. Hey Crosshair, you haven't aged a day. How you been, mate? What's going on? What do you do for work now? Are you married? Oh, I see, you're married to the job, and now pointing a blaster right at me, just like old times, Crosshair. As the episode starts on Kamino, Crosshair walks in on a conversation between Lama Su, Kamino's Prime Minister, and Admiral Rampart, who back in episode 3 was assigned by Tarkin to oversee operations on Kamino. And Rampart is telling Lama Su that he needs to be apprised to all matters on Kamino. Apprised, it's a new big word. There's a definition for you. Chuck it on screen. Meaning he needs to know what's happening with every project and everything happening with the clones. So perhaps he heard something he was unaware of, or is starting to become aware of the Kaminoans' contingency plan to keep their cloning operation active. Rampart, of course, is pushing for a switch to conscripted soldiers, aka stormtroopers, so much so that he wants the Bad Batch killed, even when Lama Su speaks highly of their value.
It would be most beneficial to have them returned alive.
I have no interest in a group of rogue clone deserters.
But that's bad for the Kaminoans. More clones means more business, so they want the Empire to see the value of their clones. But I get to more on that in just a bit. Then we head down to Bracca, finally, going to meet the Calimari. And this establishing shot here is very similar to the one we saw in the previous episode, with that hammerhead Corvette-looking ship sticking out of the scrapyard. Same thing as I mentioned last week, looks really similar to the hammerhead we saw in Rogue One, or possibly some type of Corellian Corvette. As we center in on the Bad Batch, we can also see and hear some scrap rats native to Bracca, I guess. Although I think they just go wherever scrap is. You know, they're scrap rats, not Bracca rats. They call our rats Earth rats. I also mentioned these guys last week as they first appeared on Bracca in Jedi Fallen Order. Cal even talks about them, says hi to them, says,
"Just passing through, guys. No need to come out and say hi this time."
Here we get to see one a bit closer up. Kind of cute, aren't they? So Wrecker is teaching Omega how to disarm an explosive and seems to have completely lost his mind. Dude, she's just a kid. You're giving her 10 seconds to disarm this thing? What are you doing? What are you crazy? Another screw gone loose during that brain surgery, removing the inhibitor chip, huh? That's what's going on here. Wrecker's going a little loopy. Anyway, it ended up being just a smoke grenade. But anyway, this smoke bomb is the same design as those we've seen throughout the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and even Battlefront 1 and 2. This star card here, looks familiar? Looks the same, right? If this was in one piece, anyway. So the Scrapper Guild alerted the Empire of the Bad Batch's presence at the end of the last episode. And in this episode, we get a much closer look at them as they're spying on the Bad Batch. Their helmets actually look really kind of similar to Darth Revan's, and I'm pretty sure we're actually inspired by Revan's from Knights of the Old Republic. And they're also wearing the same uniform we first saw in Jedi Fallen Order, those dark blue and orange ponchos, which I could not wait to take off our Calcium Kestis friend. And you might have recognized the hover barge the Scrappers get around on. These are also similar to those we saw used in Jedi Fallen Order. Calculator Kestis even jumps across a few of them as he traverses the environment, goes jumping and jiving on them. They even have a little bounce effect in the, like when you jump on it in the game, it feels like you're on a hovercraft. It's cool. Good attention to detail. Oh, did you guys notice Wrecker hits his head again? Yes, again. For like what? What is this? The 8th episode? Episode 8, right? So he hits his head for the 8th time again. Although this time, no Order 66 desires. Instead, just crazy laughter as he teaches a kid, let me remind you, to disarm an explosive. Wrecker. What are you doing? The birds. Did you guys notice the birds again? These are new to Bracca. They weren't in Fallen Order. I mentioned this last week as well, but they're in the latest episode of the Bad Batch again. So, not sure what they are, so I'm going to call them scrap birds. Alright, so when talking about all the assets that are still inside the Jedi Cruiser, Tech says,
"The Dianoga must have kept the scrappers away."
The Dianoga is that thing that swallows Luke in A New Hope. He lives inside the trash compactor. What an idea for a scene, man. Let's put them in a trash with a monster and then close the walls in on them, crush them. Love it. What creativity. Well, that was this thing here too in the last episode that swallowed Wrecker. And last week I said that this was actually the Ibtis Moor, that giant Sarlacc pit-like creature that lives below the surface of Bracca as a giant underground superorganism and eats scrap for breakfast. But no, it wasn't that. It was the Dianoga. How wrong was I? But come on, how many tentacle-like monsters exist in this universe? So when exploring the Jedi cruiser, Omega discovers a box of explosive charges. And these are the same as the one we first saw in episode 4, the one Hunter tried to sell and then used when chasing Fennec Shand. They're called Pyrodentin explosives, and a variation of these first appeared in The Force Awakens when Han and Chewie used them to destroy the interior of Starkiller Base. Anyway, after this, Wrecker discovers a stash of Proton Torpedoes, which as far as I know are the same Proton Torpedoes Luke used to blow up the Death Star. Although this looks awfully big to be fitted to an X-Wing, so maybe these are the ones fired out of those giant cannons aboard Venator capital ships? Maybe. Like those ones we saw in the Revenge of the Sith opening act? Maybe. A bit more on them later. One of the most interesting moments of this episode was the conversation between Hunter and Ekko. Ekko seems confused as to why the Bad Batch didn't just follow Rex. He's gone off, he's a clone, we should just, team up with him. To which Hunter replies,
"He's on a different path than us."
but what's this different path he's referring to here? If Rex is assisting with the formation of the rebellion and meeting up with Wolf and Gregor, then why can't the Bad Batch do the same? Is Hunter too concerned with protecting Omega? And why does he feel so bound to protect Omega? He's developed this father-like responsibility over her, and he obviously wants to see that through, but still doesn't really have an objective. They've just become mercenaries, haven't they? Doing all these odd missions for Sid. So what's their real purpose? What's their purpose going to be? All right, heading back to Kamino. In this next establishing shot, we see a couple of VWings fly past. Good to see these clone ships still in use. I mean, I guess this is only a few weeks or months following the Clone Wars, so not surprising they're still in action. And then we learn that the Kaminoans are in fact after Omega. They need the young clone, as they refer to her, back on Kamino to begin their contingency plan. So it seems in some way this will involve cloning Omega. But what's so special about her, we're still yet to discover. Is she Force sensitive? Are the Kaminoans planning on creating an army of Force sensitive clones? Also, they confirmed what we kind of already knew by now. They're the ones who hired Fennec Shand to collect Omega, and now they're also stepping things up with another bounty hunter. But more on that a little later. Alright, so Crosshair lands on Bracca along with his special unit of soldiers and a bunch of clones. Real clones anyway this time. And inside the Republic cruiser, we get to see inside the artillery room. This place we first saw in Revenge of the Sith, in that scene I was talking about before. Giant cannons shooting at each other, pirate style, two ships flying past. Loved this opening action sequence, so good. And here the Bad Batch set one of them off, causing a distraction for them to make their escape. And the sound effect is even the same as that in Revenge of the Sith. Really cool. One of those really specific sound effects we rarely hear. Love that about Star Wars. Love these little, tidbits and bits of information we get every now and then. Only every now and then. And just before Ekko fires off the cannon, we get this shot of the controls with some Aurebesh Star Wars writing. The Star Wars language. Here it is. This at the top says charged, and this says emergency power. So yes, they're not sending us random messages. This actually means something. As the Bad Batch are making their escape, they're confronted with this fiery flamethrower dude who's all like, yeah, check out my flamethrower, I'm so powerful, you can't do anything about it. What are you gonna do about it, huh? And then remember that Proton Torpedo Wrecker picked up before? He straight up launches it at... Really disappointed it didn't go off. But now the Bad Batch are in a tight spot. They're stuck in the ion engine, no way out with Crosshair's forces waiting for them on one side, and no way back in with the engine firing up. And here, Wrecker suggests it might be a good time for Plan 7, which according to Ekko,
Plan 7 has nothing to do with this situation whatsoever.
So what exactly is Plan 7? Is this just some random plan the Bad Batch have executed in training they know about, or is it a reference? The only thing I can think of is George Lucas's plan for Star Wars 7, which eventually became The Force Awakens, I guess. But remember that interview he did where he said,
there is no episode 7.
Is this the Plan 7 they're referring to? You tell me. Anyway, the Bad Batch use more Pyrodentin charges to break away from the engine. Crosshair's face gets terribly burned, and somehow he's the only one to sustain such injuries, even though literally the entire Bad Batch were still in the engine as it was going off, and they fall a long way down and somehow survive with no injuries. They're fine. insane. And here it feels like Crosshairs Burns could be compared to Anakin, especially when he gets wrapped up with all the bandages. A lot of similarities here. He ends up wearing a breathing apparatus to survive. More machine than man. And he's also the one who's broken away from the good guys. He's moved away. He's following his own set of rules. So a lot of parallels can be drawn here. It'll be interesting to see if he needs to wear this permanently and what he eventually becomes. Honestly, it looks a bit like Dengar here though, with the toilet paper wrapped around his head, right? So this clone trooper calling for CT-8508 like this.
CT-8508, have you secured the enemy ship? CT-8508. Do you copy?
This really reminded me of that scene from A New Hope, calling for TK-421.
TK-421, wire to at your post. TK-421, do you copy?
And then we get the big reveal of this episode. The Kaminoans hired the real deal to capture Omega. Here he is, Cad Bane. And he's back with his droid, Toto-360, who actually only appeared in a total of 3 Clone Wars episodes. Thought it was more, but it's only 3. But there you go. Cad Bane is in fact alive and more well than ever. And he and Hunter have a good old-fashioned Mexican standoff. Now this scene might look really familiar to you, especially if you've watched the deleted Clone Wars Season 7 scenes. This is almost a shot-for-shot recreation of Cad Bane's standoff with Boba Fett, which was originally going to be in Season 7, but this entire story arc was cut from production way back. Pretty cool seeing they reused the shots and direction from this scene in The Bad Batch though. Here it is. Same scene, different character. But unfortunately, Hunter loses the standoff. There's no way he was ever going to be faster than Cad. Come on, we all knew this. Not just going to reintroduce a major side character for him to lose a standoff and die. No, Omega gets taken, and as Hunter wakes up after being shot, we get one of the coolest references in this entire show so far. A first-person perspective of Hunter's viewpoint through his helmet, and this is a reference to Republic Commando. In the game's opening, waking up as a clone and putting on the helmet for the first time looks really similar to this. The view is the same, the sound effects are the same. There's a lot of resemblance here, and I love this meticulous attention to detail. What a reference. So, are there any references or details that you noticed I missed? Let me know in the comments. And for more on the latest in The Bad Batch, the last episode of these, you can watch this video here and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and join my Discord for lots more Star Wars gaming, news, updates, and everything else. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.